Once upon a time, when I was a tween, an uncle sent me a thick book of fairy tales from South Africa. It was a very exciting gift for me, and even today, almost 2 decades later, it continues to bring me great joy. And I thought of sharing these fairy tales with you, bringing them to you in my voice. I hope you will enjoy hearing them and perhaps use them as a sleeping aid before bedtime. Alice in Wonderland. Alice sat on a bench next to her elder sister, who was reading a book without pictures. Feeling bored, she decided to go and pick some flowers when suddenly a white rabbit with red eyes ran past her. There was nothing strange about this, but Alice was intrigued when she heard the rabbit mutter, "Blast, I'm going to be late." Pulling a watch out of his pocket, he looked at the time and sped away. Alice couldn't believe her eyes. Her curiosity aroused, she began to chase the white rabbit, but he was far ahead of her, and in the distance she saw him disappear down a large burrow. Without hesitating, Alice climbed into the same hole. The burrow led to a tunnel which became steeper and steeper until she was falling straight down a deep well. As she flew downward, she saw shelves full of jams and preserves and shop windows filled with cakes and sweets lining the walls of the well. Then suddenly, and with a great bump, she landed on a bed of dead leaves. It was very dark. Alice felt her way forward and soon reached a large, brightly lit room. In the middle of the room, there stood a little three-legged table which was bare except for a tiny key. Alice was just wondering what sort of door the tiny key might open when she spied at the very bottom of the far wall a little door. The key fit the lock perfectly. Behind the door, there was another long tunnel, but it was much too narrow for Alice to go through. She got down on all fours and saw at the end of the tunnel the most beautiful little garden she had ever seen, with fountains and flowers of all the colors of the rainbow. If only I could shrink and visit that wonderful garden, thought Alice. Feeling sad, she went back to the little table. To her astonishment, a little bottle now stood on the tabletop. The label on the bottle said, "Drink me." Knowing that she should not drink from strange bottles, Alice looked the bottle over carefully to see if the word poison was mentioned anywhere. Seeing nothing suspicious, she drank from it. It was quite delicious. Suddenly, she looked around in astonishment. "I'm getting smaller," she exclaimed, and Alice continued to shrink. Soon she was just the right size to fit through the little door. She ran across the room as fast as her tiny legs could carry her and was soon in the beautiful garden. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. It was the white rabbit, dressed in his finest clothes and holding a fan and white gloves. "If I make the Duchess wait any longer, she will be furious," he exclaimed. Alice, not knowing which way to go, asked the flustered animal. "Please, Mr. Rabbit," she began. He looked at her and, dropping his belongings, bounded into the tall grass. Alice picked up the fan and gloves. "I don't want to stay here all alone," she said to herself, and she began to cry. She cried so much that she soon found herself surrounded by a sea of tears. The rabbit, who was again passing by, instead of comforting her, said to her angrily, "Well, Mary Jane, what are you waiting for? Come along now." Drying her tears, she walked toward a little white house with roses growing around the door. The roses were white, but three of the strangest-looking gardeners were busy painting them red. As she approached, Alice heard one of them say, "Be careful, Five of Clubs, you are splashing paint in my face." "It's not my fault," replied the Five of Clubs. "The Nine of Spades pushed me." "Gentlemen, why are you painting these roses?" she asked. But instead of answering her, the Five of Clubs suddenly exclaimed, "The Queen! The Queen!" And the three gardeners threw themselves flat on the ground. First, the knaves arrived, then the royal children, and then the jokers, and finally the King and Queen of Hearts. Looking at Alice, the Queen asked severely, "Who is this little girl?" "My name is Alice, at your service, your Majesty," replied Alice politely. "And who are they?" asked the Queen, pointing at the three gardeners. "How should I know? They are nothing to do with me," replied Alice, surprising herself at the rudeness of her reply. The queen gave her a furious look and shrieked, "Off with her head!" The king whispered in her ear. "Remember, my dear, she is only a child," he said. Suddenly, Alice had a strange feeling. She was growing bigger and bigger. Very soon, she would be back to her normal size. "Off with her head!" screamed the queen once more. "Who cares about you?" retorted Alice. "You are nothing but a game of cards." And at these words, all the cards flew in the air and fell onto Alice. She uttered a little cry, tried to shake them off, and found herself lying with her head in her sister's lap. 2 or 3 leaves had fallen from a tree onto her face. "Wake up, Alice! You've been asleep for such a long time," said her sister. "What an extraordinary dream I've had!" exclaimed Alice, and she told her sister all about it. Hope you enjoyed the story. Good night. Sleep well. Sweet dreams.